All right. Let's. Dun, 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 banners. There we go. All right. Are you gonna be? You're not gonna be delayed, Michael, today?
We'll probably be delayed.
I don't know. We're gonna find out.
All right. Let's go.
I'm on.
Welcome to the Toy Rewind Podcast with your hosts, the Brothers Newland. Now, let's talk toys.
And hello, everybody. I am really fast internet, Michael.
I'm John.
And I'm Andrew. And today, you're listening to the Toy Rewind Podcast. And I'm a little thrown off because Michael is running fast. He got new internet out in the boondocks.
I'm updated.
And
Woohoo!
so he's running like he's in the city. It's really weird. So
I feel like Flash here or something. Where's my Flash?
it is. It's
Let's see.
super fast.
Here we go.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so because you're listening, you have no idea what he did. He just took his superpowers flash and ran it across the screen. All right, so you're listening to the Toy Rewind Podcast. This is a little place where the three of us like to get together and talk about toys from our childhood. This week, you're lucky. This is specifically something that all of us have played with and had. I think we had. Yeah, we had. I've had a few of these.
Me.
What you
No,
play with?
I
one,
never.
John?
I never.
I don't think
owned
I ever
one.
had
played
one.
it, but
Oh, okay. Well, you guys didn't own one. I've had a few different versions of this. This is episode 117, and we are rewinding all the way back to 1989, and we're going to talk about Nintendo's one of their biggest hits to start off with things. We're talking about the Game Boy. Okay.
Yeah. This
is exactly how Michael referred to this stream today as the gray brick of fun. So that's what we're talking about. We're talking about the Game Boy. So if you don't know what we're talking about, just cancel your subscription to whatever podcast service you're listening to and go crawl back under the rock that you live under. So we're going to talk about that. It's going to be great. But before we can do that, John, why don't you do your thing?
All right, so check our websites over at toyrewindpodcast.com and crossthestringsmedia.com. If you're on Cross the Strings Media, of course, you can leave us a voicemail. Click the little microphone down on the bottom and leave us one. We'd love to hear it and play it. So we're still waiting on some. Please do. Somebody. No. Yeah. You can email us at toyrewindpodcast@gmail.com. Instagram, Twitter, and Twitch is all Toy Rewind Pod. Facebook and YouTube is Toy Rewind Podcast. And then play a little game. Andrew's got it set up on podcastbingo.com/Toy Rewind. And of course, just like it says, it's a podcast bingo.
I got something
too. So
I was just flipping through some of our social media stuff, and I hadn't been on our Instagram for a while, and I saw we had a message, so I clicked on it, and the guy says, "Great show, you guys are killing it," and all this kind of stuff, pumping us up. And he goes, "Oh, by the way, I'm a graphic artist, and I'd love to do work with you guys on logos and stuff like that." And I'm all, he's just wanting some money. He's all he's trying to do. So
yeah.
Which
I got excited there for a minute. So
which you said that was Instagram?
I think it was Instagram. I don't.
Is that what you said it was? I have to look at that.
Yeah, but it was like from 9 weeks ago. So I don't know.
He's probably still looking.
Send us a message on Instagram. We don't reply to him. Email us.
I might have missed that one, but we've got a graphic designer on staff, so sorry.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we already have that covered. Yes.
We got that taken care of. Thank you, but yeah, sorry. Okay, well then let's dive right in. Michael's running so fast; he's probably 3 pages into his notes already. Let's just dive in. Let's rewind and find out all about.
Let's go.
The Nintendo Game Boy. Come on, my internet doesn't want to.
All
we
right. I said earlier, I think Andrew's jelly because mine may be running faster than his. So, so all right, let's talk about the Game Boy for a minute, or for a few minutes. So Nintendo's Game Boy was released in 1989. But let's go back a few years earlier, to the late 1970s. So while traveling on a bullet train, Nintendo's head of research and development, Gunpei Yokoi is his name. He noticed a bored businessman playing with his LCD calculator, and I guess just something to do, fiddle with his hands, whatever. He had the calculator. He was just typing in numbers, whatever. He was adding, probably counting how many power poles that were passing by as they're zooming through on the bullet train or something. I don't know. But anyway, so Gunpei Yokoi noticed this guy playing with his calculator and thought of an idea of having a watch that you could also play games on. Now, we know we've had these kind of pop up from the 80s, had some little watches, little cheap little games and stuff like that. And then now, now we've got other things now, but back then it was kind of a novel idea. So yet later, Yokoi pitched the idea to Nintendo's president, Hiroshi Yamauchi, who later gave Yokoi the
Andrew, you're still there?
Yeah, Michael's super fast internet.
Although this,
Hold on.
so, yeah. So although this system that was developed,
wait, Michael, wait. We lost you for like 15, 20 seconds at least. I think
I saw where it went off. Yeah.
Okay, so
we're back.
We just want to make sure we didn't want to miss anything. Go back. He saw the guy with the calculator, thought about a watch.
Yeah. Okay. So later, Yokoi, he pitched the idea to Nintendo's president, Hiroshi Yamauchi, who later gave Yokoi the go-ahead to develop it because he thought it was a pretty good idea as well. Although the system that was developed was a handheld game and not an actual watch, it did have a built-in clock and the game, and then it had a clock as well on the screen. So I guess it's kind of like more of a pocket watch instead of a watch. But the game was called Game & Watch. We kind of a play on words. You had a game and a clock for a watch. So now this was just, you had one single game in each thing. They had 60 different games, but there were different handhelds for each game. It wasn't like now or then we're in the 80s and 90s where you had different cartridges to plug in like the Game Boy did. This one was one handheld, had one game, and you'd buy a different game. Like Tiger Electronics. You had your baseball and football, stuff like that. So it was just one game built in. But they had 60 different games that were produced for the Game & Watch system. And there was a Donkey Kong version. This was the very first one to have the iconic D-pad that was on the Nintendo's on almost every Nintendo up until the Switch is where they had them. The Game & Watch was released in 1980, and the series lasted all the way up until 1991. I think we might have had one or two of these things. I'm trying to remember.
Yeah.
But they're little games, and they had a printed screen where kind of a design. The part of the game was just a print screen on there, and then you had a little digital person or whatever moving around in between the things that's printed on there anyway. So it was just a simple little game.
Here. For those watching.
So, John, John's got a picture of one here. And this was like a juggling game, I think. It's ball. So it's got the guy juggling little balls. I think this was the very first one was this one here. And they eventually had a dual screen one that would fold open. It's kind of like the Nintendo DS, folded open like that. You had one that would fold the other direction as well. And then the Donkey Kong one was one that folded up, and it had that D-pad, that directional pad that we all know where you play when you got your controller and you got your thumb on it, up, down, left, right, stuff like that. So that was the very first. That's where that actually came from. Was this system here?
Hey, just want to point this one out. Oh, John took out my screen.
Yeah, there's
Look at this.
Sorry.
That
This
one
is like
the colored screen. Yeah, they eventually came out with a colored screen.
so this is Super Mario Brothers, but this is definitely in a box that could be mistaken as a Zelda box. Look at that
Yeah,
guy.
it's that gold. Yeah, the gold with the brown and everything. Yeah.
There's
So-
the Donkey Kong foldable.
Yeah. So let's fast forward back to the mid to late 80s, where Yokoi is now the chief engineer of Nintendo, and it's R&D one team is what he was over. Yokoi held a meeting with Yamaguchi again about another handheld system that would have interchangeable games. So you had one system, and he would just switch the cartridges out, is what he had planned, and then you had Satoru Okada, who also helped Yokoi lead the development of this console, in which Yokoi felt that it should be small, light, and durable, and then have a recognizable library of games. So that's why he came up with you're playing it. You've got a Mario Brother game. You have Donkey Kong. You have there was one there, the first one of the first games that was released with it was Tetris. All this kind of stuff. So you kind of knew the games, because a lot of them were like smaller versions of the NES games that you were playing. So that's kind of what his vision was, to carry on little smaller games from those to this Game Boy, this handheld one. So also on a visit to Nintendo, game designer Shigesato Itoi, he came up with the name Game Boy for the new handheld system. It really didn't say. I really didn't see where he actually came up with the name. I guess because it was a smaller version, so it was like a boy version of the Nintendo Entertainment System. But if you look at it, the coloring and everything, Yokoi wanted it to look resemble the NES system with the colors, because you had the same. The buttons were the layout on the buttons were the same as the controller for the NES. The colors were the same with the gray. The little slots in the back were, where the battery panel goes on. You had the little slots across there. It resembled the air vents on the bottom of the NES system as well. So he wanted it to kind of look similar, but handheld. So although we know now that the Game Boy is actually the highest selling Nintendo system to date, but during its development, the internal reaction at Nintendo was initially very poor. So nobody really had faith in this thing. They didn't think it would go over. So it actually earned a derogatory nickname called the Dame Game from Nintendo employees, in which Dame in Japanese means hopeless or useless. So they thought it was a useless game, hopeless game. This was because it was not using state of the art technology. So this is something Yokoi wanted to do as well. He thought of this to bring down costs and stuff like that. So it wasn't using the state of the art technology. Some of the other companies were using to develop their handheld games, such as Atari and Sega and all that. So Yokoi had a reason for not doing this. What I was saying a minute ago. The smaller dot matrix screen meant that the system did not need more room for processors that were needed to run the color screens. So, because they kind of teased them and stuff, said, why don't we use color screens and stuff like that? Well, he said he still wants it handheld, but if you look at the others that came around at the same time, they're not they're all portable, but they're like twice as big as the Game Boy because they needed more room for that extra hardware in there. And also running that extra hardware meant you needed more batteries. You needed more battery space and stuff like that. So the battery life to this for having the dot matrix screen like it did extended the life 8 to 10 hours longer than the competitors. So the competitors at the time, you had Sega Game Gear that came out about the same time, and you had Atari's Lynx. Now we talked about Atari a few weeks ago. We talked about how that ended up. So the Game Boy only used 4 AA batteries compared to the others needing 6 AA batteries, and like I said, they would last 4, 5, 6 hours or so. The Game Boy would actually last 15 to 20 hours on their four batteries compared to the 6, because you'd have to keep replacing those to make it go. I knew a couple kids that had growing up that had the Sega Game Gear, and they were always complaining about, I need more batteries, you know. So it's because it just sucked down just drained the batteries down. So also doing this, using this old technology, it also kept the price down. So it was $90 for a brand new Game Boy, compared to the Sega Game Gear's $150, and then Atari's Lynx was $180 as well. So, and then Yokoi stated that the Nintendo way of adapting technology is not to look for the state of the art, but utilize mature technology that can be mass produced cheaply. So that's because you already have all that stuff developed. And you can use it. It's a lot cheaper to use that than it would be trying to develop new state of the art technology. So, so the Game Boy was released in Japan April 21st, 1989. And I noticed this when I was making notes. We're actually recording on April 21st this year. So I thought it was kind of cool. We didn't even plan that. It just kind of happened that way.
Yep.
But it had 4 different launch titles in Japan. You had Alleyway, which was kind of a Breakout, which was like an Atari game. Breakout was. It was also, I think, some other video stuff from the 80s. You had a baseball game. You had Super Mario Land as well, and then you had Yakuman, which was a mahjong type game, and I think that one was exclusive to Japan. So you can only get it with the ones that released in Japan.
Of course, they don't want you to have good stuff here.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I'd rather play Super Mario Land than mahjong. So
Mahjong's fun if you were trying to waste time.
It's kind of yeah. So released in North America in July 31st, 1989. The titles that were released with the North American release was Alleyway again, Baseball, Super Mario Land. You had a tennis game this time, and Tetris. So, and then we'll get to Tetris in just a second. So it was released in Europe in September 28th, 1989. It had Alleyway, Baseball, Super Mario Land, and Tetris. So tennis was only exclusive to the American thing, and then Europe didn't really have an exclusive one. So sorry about those guys there. So going back to Tetris, they picked Tetris because they thought they can always have, they did the Super Mario Land. They said, well, that's a lot of kids, but the whole idea of this came from an adult just trying to pass time. When he noticed the guy was playing with the calculator, he goes, we can gear this towards adults as well. So that's where Tetris came in. The guy that I don't know his name off the top of my head, I didn't write it down, but he had the rights to the Tetris game, and he went to Nintendo and said, "Hey, I got this game. I think it'd be good for your platform. And they said, and that's where they came up with the idea. Says, yeah, we can target this towards older people, and it's one of those games that you could play to pass time, like mahjong, or I play a Sudoku game as well. It's just one of those things that it's kind of a thinking mind game. That's what it is. So it geared more towards adults as well. So that's where a lot of this sales came from as well. So
I played Tetris like on a trip from East Texas to Florida to Orlando specifically, pretty much straight on a Game Boy Color. It was just amazingly fun.
Yeah. So, and you don't have to use much thinking about. I mean, you got to think about it, but it gets fun. You get the music stuck in your head and everything. So.
Oh yeah.
Like I said earlier, the console itself mimics the original NES design with the gray color and the button layout. The D-pad, select, start, A/B buttons. It had a volume control on the right and a contrast adjuster on the left for the screen. The top has the on-off switch, and the slot for the game cartridges are also on the top. The left side also has a DC port supply jack, so you can have a battery pack that would help run that as well, or there was a separate DC outlet that you can buy separately to plug in, so you wouldn't worry about your batteries running down. Let's see, and then on the bottom, it has a headphone jack. The right side also has a port that allows two Game Boys to be connected for 2-player games. And then later on, this connected like the Pokemon games that came out later. You could play Pokemon against each other. And then even the Game Boy printer as well that came out later on plugged into that too. So
I remember the Game Boy printer.
So
it was an interesting concept.
Yeah, it was kind of sticker based, wasn't it? It was stickers.
Yeah.
I
think you could basically print out little stickers and like kind of small. Yeah.
From the games.
Yeah.
No,
it was
I think some of it was there was a, and I may have it. I think I got it later in the notes here. But it has the camera. You have your Game Boy camera as well that you would put in. You take pictures and do goofy things with the camera, and then you can print those out on those as well. So
yeah.
So a couple of things that happened along the lifespan of the Game Boy. Like I said, it came out in 1989, and there wasn't hardly any changes except for new games coming out over the years. Until 1995. So 1995, Nintendo actually released several special edition models with colored cases. So it wasn't gray anymore. It was different colors. It advertised. They advertised them as the "Play It Loud" campaign on all these different colors. So there was a red one, a green, black, yellow, white, blue, and then there was a clear. Also known as X-ray over in Japan. It's translucent. You can see all the stuff inside there. So green is fairly scarce, but the blue and white are the rarest two colors. With the blue being a Europe and Japan only release, and then the white was a Japanese majority release. It was mostly in Japan, but it was also released in the UK Toys R Us stores. That was exclusive to them. So if you were a European Toys R Us kid, you can get a white one as well. So the Play It Loud editions also had a darker border around the screen as well. So July 21st, 1996, Game Boy Pocket was released in Japan, with the North American release being in September 3rd of 96. This was actually a smaller, lighter unit and only used two AAA batteries. instead of the 4 AA's. And it had around 10 hours of gameplay with the 2 AAA batteries. The screen was also changed to a true black and white screen, because you know the original ones had it was like a monochromatic greenish gray color, and it only had actually 4 different shades of gray in that screen is all it would show. So so this was a true black and white screen on this the Game Boy Pocket. So the first version, the problem, they had one issue with this. The first version didn't have like a power LED, so I guess you couldn't tell it was on. I don't know if it was on. You can see the screen on, but people complained about that, so they later added a LED on there to let you know that the game was on. So, let's see. Later. There was several new colors that came out, including a gold metal edition exclusive just to Japan. So there's a lot of Japan exclusive stuff. I guess since Nintendo's from Japan, I guess that would be good. So
That makes sense.
yeah. So Game Boy. So after the Game Boy Pocket came out in '96, so in 1998 a new one came out called Game Boy Light. This was released on April 14th, 1998, and was only available in Japan. So this one, you can only get the Game Boy Light in Japan. This was slightly bigger than the Game Boy Pocket, and then featured an electroluminescent backlight for low light conditions. If you ever had one of these, you know when you're playing and it's dark or there's no light or anything, you can't see the screen. There was nothing that lit up the screen for you to see it. Right. And that was one of the main issues that people had throughout the lifespan of the Game Boy. So they came out with this one here, but it was only in Japan, and it only lasted just a short amount of time. This one actually used 2 AA batteries, so they went from AAA to back up to AA batteries, which gave it approximately 12 gameplay hours with the light on and 20 hours with it off. It was available in 2 colors only, gold and silver, but it did have several limited editions, which included a clear skeleton Famitsu 500 edition. Again, that was the X-ray type looking one, and it had white buttons. These were limited to only 5,000 units. And then there was an Astro Boy version and a Pokemon in yellow version as well. Now, the reason why this one didn't last but a short time, and it was only released in Japan because they had something bigger and better coming out just a short time later. So 1998 also saw the Game Boy Color released, which brought to North America with the Pokemon Red and Pokemon Blue games. This actually brought more interest to the Game Boy because by then this has already been out. Game Boy's been around 9 years already, and it was time. They were thinking, well, it's about time for this to phase this out, and we'll get something new. We'll develop something new and put that out. But the Game Boy was so popular, they just kept going and going and going. But it was starting to lose steam. So by 1998, they needed something. Pokemon was already out in Japan in '96, I believe it was. So they released it with the Game Boy Color in '98, brought it to North America, and it actually bumped up sales for the Game Boy. The Game Boy Color even added 10 different color channels to older games, which improved the entire library of games with different colors. The good thing about this was it could be you could play older games on it, and it would actually add some color to the older games, and you can still play your newer games. The good thing about the newer games was you could still play it on your old Game Boys too. So they were backwards compatible with each other. All the games could be used on the regular Game Boy, Game Boy Light, the Game Boy Pocket, the everything. It just spanned across everything. So that was something that was pretty cool with that. With the Game Boy. Also, the Game Boy Color was slightly thicker than the Game Boy Pocket, but it still didn't have a backlight. So the only one that had that backlight was the Game Boy Light that was out for a little while in Japan. So the Game Boy name was actually carried on into the 2000s with the Game Boy Advance, which came out in 2001. This was a whole different. It was completely shaped different. But the game cartridges were the same, but it was set up the way you held it and everything was different. It wasn't the brick anymore. And then you had the Game Boy Advance SP, and then the Game Boy Micro came out, and then by the time the Micro came out, the Game Boy, it was about the end of that time, and it was replaced in 2003 with the Nintendo DS, which was a brand new system they brought out. So there was also one other thing. There was the Game Boy Player, which actually attached to the bottom of the GameCube. It was kind of cool because you could play your Game Boy games on the GameCube. I never had that. I have a GameCube, still have it, but I never had that piece to play Game Boy games on it.
I didn't.
But like what I said earlier, what was really cool about this was the games were all compatible across any platform of Game Boy. So that was pretty neat. You could play your old games with the Game Boy Advance. You could play your Game Boy Advance games on your original Game Boy. So that was probably the biggest, coolest part across that until they finally phased it out enough to where they can introduce the Nintendo DS in 2003. So that's pretty much the history of Game Boy. So
I was looking at this.
Go ahead, John. Go ahead.
No, I was looking at them, and here's the Game Boy Advance. If you're watching us, you can see the picture I put up. The design resembles the Switch and stuff now, so it's kind of like, okay, the designs have gone,
Yeah,
and
and what they had, that D-pad, the directional pad on there, it's on every game system Nintendo put out except for the Switch.
Right.
So,
and you get this whole like buildup of Game Boys, starting with the original, going all the way through the Advanced and all those, the Color, the Advanced, all that, and then now there's not even a use for them because the Switch, which is the main system that Nintendo has, that's all they need. You just need the Switch.
Yeah, it's both your TV and your.
Yeah, it's everything.
Yeah,
which is great.
You hook it up to the TV, or you can play it handheld. Again, it's bigger than. I mean, from what I can tell, I don't own one, but you guys do, or I know John does. It is bigger than what your actual Game Boy was, right?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Game Boy, your Game Boy is whatever the size it is, but your Switch is going to be like the screen itself is already bigger than what the old Game Boys were.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, and the good thing about the Game Boy was you can pretty well put it in your pocket. I mean, it was kind of bulky, the first one, but it would still fit in your pocket compared to the Atari Lynx and the Sega. The Sega game. It's you couldn't put those in your pocket. That's why it was a little bit easier to. It was more portable than that, and and being cheaper. And I know we talked about this when we talked on Atari a few weeks back. Why the Lynx failed was because the Nintendo Game Boy, even though it wasn't state of the art technology, it just blew everybody away because it was more available. It was cheaper to make, so the cost was lower, it's like I said, it's more portable than those were. So,
but you kept your cost down because you could use all the games all the way through. So never really had to buy new games unless you wanted upgraded color and stuff later on. So,
Yeah.
but if you got a new system, you didn't have to buy a brand new game at that time to play the games you had. Whereas now the systems, you have to completely buy the game again if you're going to play it on the new game, on the new system.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, even talking about, John, you played Breath of the Wild on your Wii, or on your Wii U, right? Right.
Mhm.
So you still play it on there because you don't have it. Jackson has a Switch.
I don't have it. No, Karen has
You
a
don't-
Switch.
Karen had a Switch. Karen has
Karen
a
Switch, which is fixing to come to Jackson because she just bought her a brand new one with the new Zelda game. So
yeah. So, but you're gonna have to get a Switch, which Jackson's getting it for you to be able to play the new Zelda game.
right.
So that's where they start to move into that. You know, you can, with the Game Boys, you can play the older games on, or you can play the newer games on your older system. It's nice.
Right.
Yeah.
Kept that backwards compatibility. You might not get all the amazing graphics, but at least get a start. You know,
And moving forward from there, the other one that was backwards compatible was the Wii, because I played my GameCube games on my Wii. So yeah.
But when you
I will
went
give
to
it
the
to
Wii
Nintendo.
Yeah.
They did a great job at trying to keep that thing going as much as they can, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then now a lot of the games that I own for my Switch are all downloaded, so I'm hoping that those will somehow, I don't know, whenever they do whatever's next.
Yeah, and I was watching I was watching a few videos on some of this backstory and stuff as well when I was making my notes, and they said now, or this was several years ago, these videos were made, but you can go to the Nintendo store, whatever it was, and all the games were available on that. I don't know if this is whatever's a Switch now has got it's probably got all that whole library on that where you could play them. So.
Right, but the bad thing is, unlike what Andrew was just hitting to, so I have it all downloaded on my Wii U, but it does not transfer to the Switch. So for me to get Zelda Breath of the Wild, I have to pay for it again.
Yeah.
For the Switch. So
yeah,
but
well,
just keep
maybe that won't work. I was hoping, but so I played quite a few Game Boys. I feel like I had one, but maybe I didn't actually have an original. Because Michael, you said they sold for $90.
Yeah.
I can't imagine. I don't know. They came out in '89, or I was a little bit younger at that point. But I know I had an Advance when I was in high school, and that's what I played Tetris on all the way from Tyler to Orlando, basically overnight. To make that trip go by quicker. And Tetris was the only game that I played on it. I don't think I actually bought any other games. I just bought Tetris and just played it. I love Tetris.
Rainey's got a story. She was telling me she got I think it was for Christmas. She couldn't remember if it was 89 or 90. I think it might have been 89. She got a present. She opened it up and it was Tetris, and it was a game. And she goes, "Well, what is this for?" And then so she opened the next box and it was actually Game Boy. So she had wanted. Well, what it was she kept asking for a Nintendo and she never got it, and then she ended up getting a Game Boy. So that's what she got. So
that's at least something.
It's still a Nintendo.
I know we'll probably So I mean,
and you can take it with you everywhere. So it was probably better than, because then you don't have to wait till you get home to play. You got it with you all the time. So.
I know we haven't had our good buddy Larry on in a while to tell us whether he's had some of these things or not. I'm going to go ahead and just say that he had one of these.
I'm sure he did.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure he probably still has it in quite a few games. I'll see if I can get his story on that or whatever. But we also have our buddy Clint. I'm sure Clint had one of these, probably still has it, and has loads of games for it.
Clint's the Nintendo guy anyway, so.
Yeah, these are things that, I mean, we know these guys have these. I mean, obviously, they're great systems. it's interesting enough that we don't have as much. I guess the story for Game Boys is probably more of a story of the games than the actual little
Yeah.
the little system. Because I mean, obviously, if you're looking to find out more information about Tetris, go over to Apple TV, watch the Apple TV movie called Tetris. You'll hear all the good stuff. It's a pretty good movie. It gives you the good storyline. But all those games seem to have kind of like that. Getting things migrated over to this and everything. Everybody had these. They know what they are. Or at least lots of people did. So, you know, I want to jump ahead and go ahead and rank these and get that done because I am not forgetting about it this week. So, Michael, where you drop this on your list?
I'm gonna put this. I'm gonna put this number 4. No. We'll go ahead and put it number 2. We'll put it number 2. I never really had one, but playing it and stuff like that, playing some games on there and stuff, I really enjoyed playing it. I kind of wished I did have one, but yeah, I'm gonna put it number 2. Something else that I forgot to mention, it was inducted into the Toy Hall of Fame in 2009 as well. So,
okay, John, where are you going with this?
It's gonna go the same place. It's gonna go number 2.
That's what I
same
thought.
reason. I mean, we played with them. Other people had them. We played with them. I never had one, but I mean, every time you can get your hands on it, I do remember playing every chance I got. So,
yeah.
Just loads of fun. This is going number 1 for me. The Street Sharks, it only gets beat out. I mean, I played with my Advance more in high school. Then I only had a couple little Street Shark things. Now, if this was Turtles, we'd probably be talking a little different story. But it's Street Shark. So this is going number 1 for me. I had loads of fun with my Advance. I remember playing the other ones, and it's great. If the Switch wasn't, now guaranteed, my Switch is not portable. But if the Switch wasn't portable, I'd probably still try to find something like this to be able to take and do things with. So, you know.
So why is your Switch not portable?
That's a whole different story. Maybe we'll talk about that whenever we do a whole episode on the Switch. We got a while. So I do want to say, Michael, you said these originally sold for $90?
$90, yeah. The original ones.
How much do you think you can get one for an original Game Boy now?
I don't know. I would say pretty cheap, but then if you want an original one in good working order, they could probably be kind of expensive. I would think.
John,
for a collector.
Guessed?
I'm close to $1,000.
No, and I can't guarantee the quality or what kind of condition these are in, but anywhere from $70 to $150.
Okay. Well,
and that depends on whether you're getting it with no game, 2 to 3 games, kind of, it kind of ranges, depending on what the whole package is based off eBay. You can get them for, I saw one on Amazon actually that you can get for like, I think it was $96. So
it's probably
be up there because everybody would be collecting them.
Well,
that's kind of what I thought when I looked it up.
With as many of them that were made, that were sold, I mean, there was millions and millions of these things sold. So there's probably plenty of them out there. So it's not really driving up the demand. I mean, the supply and demand type part of it. So I mean, there's probably plenty of them out there. Yeah, you're probably on the higher end of one that's like perfect in working order and with a good game or two. Yeah, that's probably where you get your higher pricing from. Yeah.
The Game and Watches on eBay, a lot of those run anywhere from $25 to $50. Yeah. Depending on if it's like Zelda or Mario, different things like that. By the way, I did find this one. that I'll show you now when I was looking at them. And it is an actual, see, you can see the difference in the colors in that other one that I showed and this one. You can actually see it has that gold. It's got that gold tint and it's going to, show really well. So depending on those. So even those are not terribly expensive, to be honest. So I'm kind of surprised, but maybe it's because of the Switch and how mobile that is and everything. And now you've got the Switch store, which you can go in. You can actually play Game Boy games on your Switch by downloading them through. You could play NES, Super Nintendo, 64.
Yeah.
You can play all those games by downloading the one game on your Switch, and then bam, you've got it. You've got all the games that you ever wanted. So, and maybe that's why the price has gone down, because you get a better system that you can do more with instead of this one little thing that people are just probably putting on shelves now.
Yeah, probably so.
So really the collectors are probably the only ones that are picking these up.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's the the Game Boy. So and I'd like to find, it said that green one was kind of hard to find. I'd like to find a green one. So
just an original?
Yeah, the Game Boy the Play It Loud series where there were different colors.
Okay, so these different color ones maybe run a little differently. I found one. It's mint, original, rare Game Boy, first generation. It is green.
That'd be a Play It Loud one then. It's green.
Yes, it is Play It Loud. We're looking at. I'm trying to figure out which games are in here, so that I can be specific. Okay, Tetris and Mario Tennis.
Okay.
It also comes in a case, like a clear case, and the games come in cases. Let's take a shot at a price. How much you guys think?
$560.
John?
124.
Sorry, what'd you say?
124.
124. How about $658.50?
Oh, so that's not.
Ding, ding, ding. Michael wins.
$100
Michael, come on down. You've won the.
All right, I got me
the price is right. I'll send you the link. It's on Etsy.
Yeah.
I just happened to be the first one to come up. I don't usually look for Game Boys on Etsy. I just happened to be the first one that popped up for the green one.
All right.
All right. Anything else you guys want to add about Game Boy?
No. Done with Game Boy.
No.
I got something else I want to add here in a minute when we get done with Game Boy.
Okay. I do like Game Boy. I like how Nintendo was trying to push something different, trying to, be a little crazy. Oh, sorry. I didn't show that. Trying to be kind of different on things. I do want to talk, Michael, you mentioned the watch and how he saw the guy playing on the calculator. And thought, let's do a watch.
Yeah.
And you also mentioned all of our crazy stuff we have on watches nowadays.
Yeah.
Do you have a smartwatch, Michael?
I don't.
Do you have a smartwatch, John?
No.
Okay, I have a smartwatch. Do you know what I use my smartwatch for? There's all kinds of stuff on it.
To tell the time?
No.
Track your steps.
Kind of. Maybe about 25% of the time it is for telling the time. But I also have a watch or a phone in my pocket that I pull out sometimes. And I'm also 99% of the time staring at a monitor that has the time right up in the top corner. So it counts my steps. That's freaking all it does.
That's what I said. Counts your steps.
I have this super awesome watch that basically just counts my steps. So Mr. Dude from Japan, who's trying to get us to do cool things on our watch, thank you, but we just need him to count our steps.
Yeah, I mean,
okay.
I thought about getting one, but I don't wear watches, so
I actually, Michael,
crack the screen.
Yeah,
I think you should get one, Michael, because I would like to know how many steps you do in a day.
It's not as much as it used to be.
That's also what I was gonna say.
I used to put in. It varies on busier days. It was between 8 to 12 miles is what I would walk a day at work.
What is it now that you're in charge?
I hadn't checked it here lately, so
peons to do things for you.
And it's a smaller store too that I'm at, so it's I don't do as much I still do a lot of walking, but I have to look at it. I'll let you know on next episode. I'll have to go back and look at it.
Okay, I'm just curious as to how much, because I know you're doing. Yeah. Okay, so I'm done. I'm done with Nintendo. Done with that. So you can continue on with what you were thinking. What you were going to add on, Michael.
Yeah. So I was looking at this little brochure that Rainey actually bought one of the world's smallest toys. It was an ET, and we opened one, or she actually bought two, and we opened one up, and it comes with this catalog of all these different world's smallest toys. And I was looking at, and there was the world's smallest Atari game that actually works. So I'm tempted to try to find that and figure out how small it is, and if it's small enough, I may get it to see if it works. I have a small Nintendo, the retro Nintendo, the retro Atari that came out has all the Atari games on it. But I'd like to see how this one actually says the smallest fully functional desktop console game. Atari 2600. It includes 9 games in it. So I'd like to see. And then right above it, there's the Dance Dance Revolution game as well. Right there, you can see a picture of it, and you use your fingers to dance on it. So that is pretty crazy there. But they got all kinds, and I've actually got a couple of the world's smallest Hot Wheels. Go in my Hot Wheel collection. But down there, this is saying there's like 7 different series, and I mean, you can think of anything. I have a couple of the Transformers. I don't have all of them. There's Mego. We've talked about these guys, the Mego Monsters.
Oh,
you got the world's smallest Mego Monsters, world's smallest Ninja Turtles. I don't know if it's
you can't see it.
Yeah, it's all blurry probably. Universal Monsters, we've talked about them. Let's see what else we've talked. There's G.I. Joe, Candyland, Boggle. So there's games. There's Trolls. Good Luck Trolls. Transformers. The Mego micro action figures from the. Let's see. There is Clue, Scrabble, Monopoly. There's a Monopoly, John. There's a Monopoly on here. There's Straight to Armstrong. There's Glowworm. There's all the Care Bears. Let's see what else. Viewmaster, Master of the Universe, Viewmaster. I don't know how you see the world's smallest Viewmaster. So there's a Barbie Dreamhouse, Mr. Potato Head. There is Super Soakers, world's smallest Super Soakers. There's all kinds of stuff on there. There's little arcade games. Nerf. There's world's smallest Nerfs. Tonka trucks. And the micro arcade games, which are similar to the Play and Watch, but they're really small. So that's my little extra tidbit for this. So, which is pretty cool. I mean, it's stuff that we've talked about in micro form. So
that's interesting.
Yeah. So that's it. That's all I got.
That's all. That's all right. It doesn't matter. It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with that, thanks for listening to episode 117, where we talked about Game Boys. Be sure you go check out all the social medias that John talked about at the top of the show, and go check us out on Cross the Streams Media, where you can leave us a voicemail. We'll be happy to play here and answer to talk about all your favorite toy lines that you want to talk about. That'd be great if you want to do that. So check all that out. If you don't remember those, just search for Toy Rewind and Toy Rewind Pod and Toy Rewind Podcast. Just look for all those. If we don't look familiar, then don't follow them. Follow the ones that look familiar, that sound right, that sound like it's us. You can find those on our website, toyrewindpodcast.com. Speedy McMichael up there wants to end this so that we can figure out if he's going to download or upload faster than the rest of us. So with that, on behalf of the Brothers Newland of the Toy Rewind Podcast, play on.
You've been listening to the Toy Rewind Podcast. Follow and join in the conversations at toyrewindpodcast.com.